Okay, welcome to the second reading. Can you hear me in the back? Is the microphone okay? Of the spring edition of the Visiting Writers series. Thanks for being here on a rainy night. And thanks to the English department, my colleagues for being here and always being here, along with all of you for being here, and to the Division of Arts and Humanities for supporting the Visiting Writers series and the presence of living writers at Carthage. One note, a future event on April 29th. After these two early readings, we'll return for a reading by Donald Gravel. Tonight, after the reading, there'll be a brief break for refreshments and for you to take a look at So Tough, Jared Stanley's new book, which the chapbook class has, but all the rest of you may not. And take a look, buy it on Venmo, say hi to the poet, and then we'll reconvene for a question and answer conversation with my class, my chapbook class, and Chuck's class, and anybody else that would like to stay. Jared Stanley is a poet and writer who often collaborates with artists. He is also a friend with whom it is a delight to walk and talk. Jared is the author of 4 collections of poetry: So Tough, Ears, The Weeds, and Book Made of Forest, as well as many chapbooks and pamphlets, most recently The Blurry Hole with Samir Farouk from Art Speak in 2022, and Shall from the Black Rock Press in 2019. His writing has appeared in the New York Times, Bennington Review, Harvard Review, Volt, Folder Magazine, and many others. His awards include the Saturnalia Prize, Harvard's Woodbury Poetry Room Creative Fellowship with Samir Farouk. Maybe somebody will ask later about the project that was considered but maybe never finished that had, I have interesting memories of you telling me what that was. I'll check them later.
The unbuilt projects?
The unbuilt projects of the sounds, the background sound of like readings, the sounds from the readings, everything except the reading. All the other sounds that were recorded at these events, which maybe says something about Jared's.
Everything but the words.
Everything but the words. Recent collaborative art. I should mention the Silver Pen Award from the Nevada Writers Hall of Fame. That's a first year at Carthage. As well as fellowships.
Not after Dawn comes.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll have
number 2 in one semester, maybe. As well as fellowships from the Nevada Arts Council and the Center for Art and Environment, which speaks to the kind of collaborative works that Jared at least sometimes has done with artists that sort of intervene in natural spaces. He's also had recent collaborative art exhibitions at the Athenaeum Art and Music Library, and in collaboration with Matthew Hebert, and at the Lilly Museum in Reno in collaboration with Samir Farouk. He teaches in the MFA program in creative writing at the University of Nevada, Reno, and lives in Reno, Nevada with an historian and their daughter. His poems are witty, awestruck, sometimes rude, always full of attention to vowels and vowels, plosives and Jeffrey Pines, waft and wane, smoke and hue. The poems in So Tough, 8 lines each, had me thinking of sonnets without sestets or octaves awaiting their sextets to make them sing. Some months ago we were talking and Jared said in the singing lessons he was taking after many years of singing, he found that everything he'd said about poetry metaphorically was literally true, or was being told to him by his teacher, the way he had told them metaphorically to students of poetry, literally about singing and the way the body works with breath, which I found fascinating. I'd like to hear more about this. And I might say his poems are physically and figuratively true, as you will hear if you sing them or listen to them, as we are soon to be lucky enough to do. Please welcome Jared Stanley.
Thanks, Rick. It's really amazing to be back in Wisconsin, which is a really important place for me. I came here to Carthage in, I think, 2012, and the friendship of Rick and Lisa and Chuck has been really sustaining for me for a very long time, and so it's really a gifted year. Matter of fact, I kind of steal some of Rick's lines in my new book. I don't think I'm going to read for that. I'll share that with you later, but you should feel free to do that. So I'm going to read, I'm going to spend the first half of the reading from So Tough, and then I'm going to read a bunch of new work. I don't know, I think I'll start actually with a newish poem. Do you know who Nicolas Cage is?
Yeah.
I just have to ask because I don't know. So sometimes, you know, if you write or you try to live an imaginative life, your imagination it stops working for sometimes. You know, I think it's sometimes called writer's block or the dullness of depression. I don't know. It has different words, you know. But so for in my new book, I had a period where I kind of didn't know how to write anymore, and I thought it would be fun to ask some people who aren't poets to ask them what they would want to have poems about. And I've done that in readings before, which is actually really hard to do that. But if you ask someone before you write the poem, then it's easier to find out. So I was asked to write a poem about, and this is the title of the poem. This friend Alan said, write a poem about Nick Cage's jacket and Wild at Heart. And so the poem is called Nick Cage's Jacket and Wild at Heart. The sun poured molten concrete. I'm sorry, did I do that right? Oh yeah. The sun poured molten iron on a pork chop. So this is so tough. And as Rick was saying, the poem is uninterrupted sonnets in a way that only go to the first 8 lines and then don't have the final 6 lines. That's one way of looking at it. The other way is if you do people in here have favorite numbers?
Yeah.
So what's your favorite number?
8.
100. Same. So there are 8 lines. Ergo, just write a bunch of favorite poems and start making sense. Right, you just start with what you love and then you can backfill rationale later. So tough. And I think it's a book-length poem, but I'm not sure. Dear voices fill a room beyond the wall, fill my ear, my cup, so far for us to go, undersea, above ground, feeling for a level surface upon the earth, the timbres, the changes, lovely, in accordance, barely vibrating these bones, little half moons of smoke light in the typewriter keys. Singing close to the ground, light tastes like air, kinda, touched, felt by other generations, bright nests in nests, my hope, it will be air plus music. Touch a dry grass stalk, it's whole. To shoeless feet, they don't seem like great distances. This was written during about 2 months of being stuck under super oppressive wildfire smoke, so the thing kind of wafts constantly like that. Was it 2 years ago when you had the really bad smoke up here? Mm-hmm. So like some of these poems are just like about getting really high on the trees, basically. North of here, smoke from distant fires rises over the ridge, blows closer all the time, holding shadows at an angle, to no one's surprise and everyone's grief. The earth shakes loose its mammoth stones, wiggling the treetops as it does. What happened here? The trees laugh. Nothing, they say. We're just screaming. Life is a dream of And I fill each line with jewels, blanks, fine straw, the grass tips drooping. A gust slips down past my loose, ornamental parenting style, a purple aura from a drop of tangerine juice, motion and no motion, enthusiast of Tuesday. It's a very Tuesday. Everyone's drunk and nobody's thirsty. That's Jesus talking. If you don't recognize those last lines. I mean, I don't know if it's Jesus talking, but it probably is Jesus talking in the poem. The shooting began in San Jose on a day like this one. At a time like this, the poets were laying low on the heavy, uneven ground. Dry lips beneath the weather. Any exposed bit turns into leather, looser than a bullet. Is there a deliberate way to wear an earthbound look, warm but not too warm? To put on a woozy disaster like a shirt? Able-bodied youths throw their muscles at smoke. It's Tuesday. Time to feel free in a house. Healing was this small thing we had, unemotional and all emotion. I want to be your shirt. I want to fit you. I will be your coast, grown bare in the windrush. Basho's weather-beaten skeleton. He always wrote about fleas. A bonfire in the rose garden. Survival plants of the East Bay. If you know this haiku poet, Basho, very famous poet. He's also famous for these 2 travel logs where he travels to the north of Japan, and people are like, oh, it's beautiful descriptions of nature. It's like a lot of writing about catching fleas in hotels. Like just getting fleas. And one of them is called, I think it's called Memoirs of a Weather-Beaten Skeleton. This is the other famous one is. This voluptuous, there's a lot of shirts in this poem, book. This voluptuous shirt of air, tousled gusts of fuck, the rhythm of payment, unwinnable style. This is my very American poem. Bite marks on the wind's back, a panoply of distorted fart noises. I get so lazy and wanton, a good time, a blue dude. You should feel free to that's like when you make confessional poetry, you're like, I'm a blue dude. Sad today. But also, down to the shoelaces. You dress the part. I confess to the study of clouds, to loving mysteries. This is another confessional poem. I confess to the study of clouds, to loving the mysteries, distrusting the wound, a crust of salt upon the slipping rock. For your feelings, I'm doing this, trying to taste what light tastes like. Lick 2 tears. One swarms with intertidal green. This was mostly written during 2021, so it was like late pandemic, early, I don't know if it's early, mid-period fall of the empire. And then this is like, I did a lot of just walking around at night, because it was so empty. I live in this city that's kind of empty anyways, but it was extremely empty, and it was that period when just animals were coming out and showing or renewing their presence in the city. Skunks live in the drain by the parking lot. The dream police haunt my standing here. Lungs in Pompeii, lungs in plaster. Walking out into the green escapist drizzle, a storm drops cool hells our way. No cleansing tremolo felt like rain today to collect the ash and lay it on the earth. The ground could open at any time. I have a few poems that are that have to do with well, sometimes they're in Istanbul because it's a city where you kind of can see history, you know, layers of history just sitting right next to each other in a way that sometimes it's hard to imagine in the United States as material culture. And this is based on the very ending of a famous poem by Guillaume Apollinaire called Zone. Here you are on the Galata Bridge eating a fish sandwich, your face changing shape in the dusk light off the Golden Horn. Here you are in Reno, your shoulders red tracery where the sun came down to say, fuck off. Here you are in Philadelphia, someone I can only imagine in a red hoodie among the spring-like dormancy of the world. Here you are in Berkeley, after dancing all night at Lipo Lounge, stumbling back across the bridge, a bit of lipstick on your tooth. So Lipo is like the most famous classical Chinese poet, but Lipo Lounge also is a scene of a really drunken dinner party in Jack Kerouac's On the Road. But when I was a kid, it was a place that had a dance club in the basement. So it's like had done a lot of service to literature over the decades. And this is another poem set in Istanbul. Trash cans huddle in the lower arches of the Theodosian walls. These are walls that withstood war for 1,000 years. That's pretty impressive. Trash cans huddle in the lower arches of the Theodosian walls. Neighborhood kids hold up anonymous fragments of bread, say, hello. Wealth is gross. This rain is intense. Vines curl out of masonry. Put some flesh on eternity. A pigeon in the hollow of a high window. So Donald Will is coming next month.
Or April. Yeah,
In
next month.
April?
That is next month.
Yeah. So that line at the bottom there. So Don Ravel also teaches in Nevada. Never met him before, but we both have our name on the Writers Hall of Fame placard. I go look at him, I'm like, hey, Don. And when I lived in Chicago, he had put out this book called Arcady, which is like 20 years ago or something. He had this wonderful line that I never understood until I was walking in downtown Chicago, and the line was, a heap of doves beside the children today. And I was walking in downtown Chicago and I just saw this gigantic pile of pigeons, and they were eating something, you know, and I never understood the line that Don Ravel said until I saw this big pile of pigeons. And so whenever I'm like writing, I write about pigeons, even if they're in a broken window in the top of the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. They're like, it's like a secret ode to Donald Ravel. So you can tell him that when he comes. What? He does that weirdo. But I mean, I mentioned that here because the sources of poetry are, you know, can come from all kinds of places, and sometimes they just come from reading a line, not understanding it, seeing what happens in reality, and then understanding it, and then 20 years later, plopping it into your own work, you know. So as I was saying, since it's Tuesday, stay loose about the goddamn facts. If you're busy flowering into your circumstance and animals should fall from chiseled letters in a cloud, read the blur and sigh. Sip from the stranger's cup, get a good angle on it and suck. It's as easy as feeding your heart to a dog in a heat wave, or drawing a great half moon in the margins of a sea. The air combs a finger over the miraculous pool. When the tree smoke gets in my lungs, I like to squint at the world. These teeny scuds of clairvoyance kind of haze my inner eye. Make a sucking whoosh up the ashen ectoplasmic wildfire's face. It's very floaty up here, this world we just started to think of and burn in. An insane amount of heat and ash fall. But let this personhood waft and crest. Maybe wander or puff up, blossom a small bump, curved and available, cool as a microspore twirling up my face. Isn't that something to learn? Not just horror or power, any charm. And my unspeakable you strays, I must be your child's. And this is my child speaking. I'm missing out on so much. They are friends with gorgons, werewolves, and, oh, but you already know about the punk rock mermaids. Has anyone ever read, like, the kids' graphic novel, Lumberjanes?
What was that?
Lumberjanes? This is about the frustration of fantasy and reality, trying to transfer between sort of like a supernatural sleepaway camp and the real. Some life returns at the approach of a stranger. Remember right after, like, you could start seeing people around in COVID and you didn't know how to, like, respond to the existence of another person that you didn't live with? This is like about that. Some life returns at the approach of a stranger. In the moving, furtive disappearance the years are made of, my hands do all kinds of weird shit. Looking for a changed shape of air, elusive agitations and sympathies, they cup your shoeless foot. And this is another version of the same event. So alone, so tough. So weird at home, so weird in public. On the street, a whiff of body spray blows in off a stranger's shoulder. The look is human, nameless to nameless, the texture of a luxuriant shoe. If I keep my droplets to myself, maybe Tuesday will be a consolation. Bodily autonomy. How many times can you write about ash in the undersmoke? The indicator light on the air purifier is red. To begin in ignorance with the spirit of trust, and to end getting high on burning trees. I open the book and feel fear, and fear people maybe seeing my fear. Your body doesn't stop being your body when you choose to be in a dark room for several days. Feel the ink with your hand. You're ruining my book. I can hear you. There's all these other ancillary sounds that happen when you're reading, you know, this like. Off in the bushes with the unseen, dropping rocks through a spider's web, rustling with some tough giggles. Whichever pain blots out curiosity, my wind-sucked vulture will pluck it out. The oblivious hand is comfortable in thorns, an oblivious hand in a tangle, too physical for any Monday in this century. Soft, liquid, rich cream, refreshing gel. Because I live in the desert, some people would be like, oh, are you a desert poet? And I read that. Because that's really what it amounts to, moisturizer.
Skincare poet.
Yeah, I know, exactly. It's important, you know? I brought like 3 face masks with me on this trip because I remembered how dried out you can get in the heating systems of the Midwest. Okay, here's another confessional poem. Here, another book of suffering. This is for you. folded into an airplane and sent down, thrashing in a thrashing wind. The earth makes a sound, a waggling tongue under the sod, cream-colored, soft, milled, and bendable like this one. The light is getting pretty orange up here, rolling around in the tops of the firs. I shiver all through my carbon. This poem is like the opposite of what the weather is like today. Hide from the sun in balsam root time. The light in its cunning wants the skin to pass over the blade clean into me, the dark sky sanctuary in black widow time. A king wants to slit the clouds with his fingernail. I teach the kid to eat tubers and avoid rows. It won't help when things get serious. Snow melts in the gaps between pavers. We touch the ground like that, a faint scent, cool. Born in peacetime, fooled by permanence. Let's point a phone at the planets. Flies press their bodies against the valley floor. Okay, so that's so tough. I gotta read a nice chunk. How much time are we doing? We're getting our stride. I'm gonna read a bunch of poems from my new book, which is not out yet or anything like that. I just finished it, so I just have to printing. But it's a very different book from So Tough, which I wrote like in under a year, because 8 is my favorite number, and so I just kept writing 8 lines. This is much longer poems, and they all have titles and stuff, and it's a way more gothy. It's called At the Opening of Your Death, so it's like a way more deathed out book. And I'm gonna just read a kind of a sampler from across it. The first 2 poems are really thinking about, well, they're a pair of border crossers. One, I don't know. I'm just gonna read them and see if that comes through. And then I'm gonna read an elegy, some poems about I guess young people laughing at old people's nostalgia, stuff like that. Okay, this first poem is called it's called Trinity Bellwoods, which is the name of a park in Toronto, off of Queen Street. So think borders and barriers at the beginning. Meet me at the whitewashed gate, touching gray northern blues and thick jasmine. Maybe the rain will start. And if the rain starts, meet me in any doorstep. It's probably also a love poem, really. And if the rain starts, meet me in any doorstep, in your water-darkened linen. Wipe the tiny cupped blossoms from the step. Sit down and look. Solid intimacy actually exists. Sit, stand, put your ear to the gate. The Queen Street truck exhaust is cloudy, an aide de memoire for my shape to try on. So I pass by it first, cough a little dust from the floor of a memory palace I've been sweeping just now, a little bit sucked in, laughing at some picture hung askew in the lobby. By an accident of birth, I could arrive as rain in this air around a gate, could see a tree as patient and waiting, an unfamiliar slop of green. This one, like the other one you've met before, off to the side with my hand out like this. Don't I know your name? The disenchanting drizzle pooled in a vein on my wrist. The disenchanting drizzle pooled in a vein on my wrist. Hits the tip of the sun-faded visor of your cap. Don't you take my hand? I cough more dust from the floor. So we meet, or are under, the temperate green cream chestnut blooms, the ones that stick to a face, to the sidewalk and the gate. In a mystery, in an organism, in a letter, in a park, the air around a gate. Don't we laugh in it? Push out something less than air? At least there are no words in some breath, having matured into a mutual, smiling, majestic look. A light step and a hover over the other side of the fence. Oh man, the jasmine really creamed the air, the sober, leafy, diffident air, as good a place as any to pop out of the earth the easy way, north. Say goodbye to a citizen, a thing that doesn't smell. Hello, jasmine. Hi, green cream scents. The pure must not smell like anything at all. At least that's not our hell. And this is a different style, different scenario. It's called Sanctuary Stairs. I gather her head up in my sweater and we crouch here. Some dried ketchup where her lip turns down, a light crust of dirt on one eyebrow, the concrete stained and worn, surprise rain splattered in the gap between here and the parking lot. Our socks are wet, or feetage. Then her cough started. It's going to be okay. We can hide her for a minute. Her damp head soaks the wool. The corners reek of urine. We do a sober trick. My body is now a cradle. Her hair touches my wrist. She trembles down to her cavity, the cough we love. The careless future emerges with it, shaking like a star bracelet with elastic in this other country, the contradictory music of our tears. What do wandering souls find to live in here? What warm skin in this stairwell? The air is cold. The earth moves. One bug survives beyond their law. 3 of us hunched up like heaps of wet wool in the leaky crook of a stair. You heard about us somewhere. This one was called Days on the Mountain. I came up here to fill my head with air. Wind whistled over the exposed beams of a tower painted in red and white stripes, visible from the city, sending weaponized, soundless applause back and forth from a great height. My Tisha was newly dead, breathing in another city, and since any city is more places than one, I came up here to whisper jokes into a hollowed rock. He taught sleep at the speed of water, how to grind a mountain down like this. So I started at the top, sleeping. It was one of those cold nights. His fingers slipped loose at the edge of hearing, stealing time from the labyrinth of instructions in a smooth world, touchless. I fell to earth, placed a reddish stone on the machine in my room, his voice and the lip blood in my mouth. Okay, I'm gonna read three more poems. This one is in prose. I have a really torturous relationship with prose. I don't feel comfortable in it. But I started thinking a few years ago about impossibility in writing, because that's like the fun bits. And I also thought about the way that I tend to have really strong reactions to smell. If I were to ask you right now, what's the smell you hate? I'm sure all of you have just conjured like, what are some things that you hate to smell? Anyone?
Dale broccoli.
Daled broccoli. Daled? Like right off the stalk.
No, I mean, like, after cooked.
Oh,
Cooked
yeah,
and-
yeah.
Cat vomit.
What was it?
Cat vomit.
True. It's funny you're gonna say that because I need this Chihuahua that only had like 3 teeth and its breath always smelled like that. But that's better. Anyone else? Burnt popcorn. Ooh. Well, you eat it anyways, huh? At the bottom. I know you do. Anyone else want to?
Frying smelt. Fried smelt.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that thing.
Yeah, when you haven't been in Wisconsin.
I know, exactly. It's been too long.
Vinegar.
Vinegar?
I would
Yeah.
say like rotting watermelons is a unique, horrible smell.
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
never
yeah,
forget.
yeah, yeah. Rotting watermelons. Yep. Okay, so so notice when I just asked you that, I just messed with you a little bit. I'm so sorry. So in color, in vision, we have this category of adjectives for aspects of things called color, right? We don't have any corollary for that in smell, right? You're gonna say, oh, it smelled, I don't know. When you say the noun, right? Or you say the combination of nouns. If you all know the famous scene of Cologne and Anchorman, you know what I'm talking about. So smell is actually really very hard to describe, especially in English, but actually in most languages. And so, that's one of these places where in poetry you go like, oh, well, there's a gap. Let me see if I can sort of work into that a little bit. So, because I felt like I wanted to write prose, it's not that I don't like writing prose, I just that I don't feel it, kind of. And so I thought, well, maybe one way would do that is to sort of imagine a sentence as like a wafting smell, moving through the rivers of air. And so this is kind of, these sentences are like, the organization here is not narrative, it's not logical, it's like an air current. At least that's the attempt. I really have talked this up now, it's not gonna live up to that. It's called Smelling the Evening, and there are about 5 of these in here, and they're 15 sentences apiece. And the only thing that I will say here that is I'm sorry to keep talking about Chicago. This is terrible. I shouldn't be talking about Chicago and Wisconsin. But this mentions the very great Chicago painter Miyoko Ito. Smelling the Evening. When the night dew lies heavy, certain fragrances divide the living from the dead. I've been up since midnight, trying to find a way to drift around the meaningful edge, to take up a shape of a scent and fill it with my breath. On one side of the wall, they're cooking a large quantity of meat. The smell cuts like a sharp, touchable object, carving a hollow in the pit of my stomach. What kind of animal are they cooking? On this side of the wall, things we once considered the backdrop to our grand dramas begin to crowd in on us, like the living stench of a warm dumpster behind the Safeway, full of shimmering, timeful contact. Watermelon, like rotting watermelon. Coyotes roam Grace Cathedral Park. They're hungry and they want the city back. This morning, a wasp came up and kissed my coat because it was orange, the color of a very rich nectar. Unable to bathe for days by this point, I must have been a fragrant flower to her, my scent a cousin to the feeling Miyoko Ito describes in the paintings of Giorgio Morandi. He gets the feeling between 5:30 and 6 p.m. Not a catalog, not a map. A scent is a continual hint, the pull of ridiculous commitment for those of us who cannot help but love our lives. To glide warily between our senses of its passionate excitement and its rubbed out, lived in quality, to combine and confront our redolent and entangling fear in this confused early spring. Sometimes I worry none of this is legible, that the world beyond the human doesn't exist. I can barely smell it on my hands, like burnt raspberry or glue. Yeah, chemical cherry. That's in dialogue. To be open in nose and heart, organized in time and space like a perfume, a filthy habit for special occasions. Facts leak like rain when the wind is right. Nerve endings jostle a leaf. Uneven bits of rebar smell like blood. Gusts and melodious scents dip in the wind. Marsh air coldly shivers up your leg. When the page is dry, they'll talk to you in the flavors of the past, something rounder than a boundary. They don't sing, and they don't explain. Okay, just two more poems. This is, my daughter is sort of in the eye-rolling phase because I'm the dad in the relationship. So I say anything and it's just like, so this is sort of like this is sort of in the voice of someone rolling their eyes at the elders. It's called Appetite and Simple Forgetting. They were the last generation, and yet we were born. Mud covered the laces of a survivalist boot. The swan put its head in a drain pipe. This wind cracked our lips, and like the children we were, we kept on licking. It's probably simpler now that the wind does things for us. Now we have all this time. See, the people who brought us here, what they said about the sunlight hitting the trees and the eclipse light they cupped in their hands through the leaves, it all sounded sincere, but what could it mean? We are alive. We make up games, gossip in the scrub and cheat grass. The thorns nick our calves, it's fine. They mock our songs, and it's easy to ignore the way the air whistles over their teeth. I mean, nobody cares. They cry about our dirty cuffs, complain of how fragile the dusk seems, even on Tuesday, which is Tuesday, and will keep being Tuesday, and is dusk, and will not be too easy to smear or haul away, because it is not paint, it is not debris. We made some life in their heaps, fragments of a guitar tune. They never stopped talking. Things we couldn't believe, swans and crystal, hymnals, how many kinds of cheese there used to be, astonished and kind of dead, flies in a billow of ash. Then suddenly, we were no longer the stories they told themselves. This is the last poem. It's called Alkaline Melody. And you know, alkaline, it's like slightly acidic. In Nevada, there's like dust that's slightly acidic. Burn your eyes, your skin once in a while. It gets all over your car. It takes like a year to get out of your car. So this poem is called Alkaline Melody for no reason. And the last two lines are in dialogue, and they're just like, they come from a brief conversation I had with one of my students. The past is full of grocery store music. The flag is at half-mast again. Another escape room. Their myth hid a good idea for a god. Something very loud over the wall. BB gun. Liquid death. Do they have liquid death here?
Yes.
Insanity. BB gun. Liquid death. I'd rather buy a shirt than write a poem. Crawl into the cup made by a group of rocks till the rain stops. But these voices came in and scattered my care, small and worrying where the curiosity hovers. Don't be a stranger, they said. I will try. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared, that was amazing. Come and look at a book, maybe get a book, get a cookie or coffee or a beverage outside, and then we'll gather together at exactly 7 o'clock to have a conversation with Jared. So Chuck, yours, stay here, and Chuck's class, and others as you feel the urge. But thank you all for being here.
Sign, sign.